This is Joseph Chilorio, and he's the technical director of the Mechanics Hall in Worcester, Massachusetts. And it was really kind of you to take some time to answer some of my questions, or just kind of talk a little about Mechanics Hall and the beautiful acoustics here and the amazing history of this place.
Yes, we love to talk about the hall, and it truly does have an enormous history spanning over 160 years. Of course, we don't really know why the acoustics turned out so well. There was no science of acoustics back in 1857. Basically, back then, the architect of the hall would have gone to other halls to see which halls worked well acoustically, because in those days there were no amplification systems, no microphones or anything. So a hall, in order to be successful, had to have good enough acoustics so you could hear the spoken word at any seat in the hall. And this hall was absolutely wonderful for that, simply because it is of the correct shape. It's a long rectangular hall, what we call the shoebox shape, which gives good, strong lateral reflections to the back of the hall. Now, Boston Symphony Hall compares very well with Mechanics Hall. Both are shoebox-shaped halls. Symphony Hall is about 20 feet higher in ceiling height than Mechanics Hall because it has a second ring of balconies. So the Mechanics Hall has just one ring of balconies, but Boston Symphony Hall has another ring just above that. In this hall, you can use it just as it is. You know, it may be right now as we speak about 2 seconds of reverberation time, but that's not so long as to blur most romantic period music. I believe Tchaikovsky and Rachmaninoff and Mahler probably wrote their music with the idea of that type of reverberation in that time range. And this hall suits that very well. There are pillars, there are portraits, and there's a lot of frilly ornamentation that makes for a very diffuse reverberant field. Now that's a term used by acousticians. A diverse reverberant field simply means that when sound strikes the side walls, it scatters in many different directions, and it doesn't produce what they call flutter echoes or ricocheting echoes that would zigzag between the sidewalls. If that happened, you'd get a zigzagging effect. In this hall, when you clap your hands, the sound dies down logarithmically. That is, it's a smooth natural decay occurring over about 2 seconds. Let me demonstrate that again. Notice how the sound decays beautifully without any flutter echo at all. If you had a hall that had smooth parallel walls that were perfectly smooth, you would get a ricocheting effect, till you would get clap, 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 instead of a nice decay of sound. So that's why the design of this hall is very good in that respect as well. Blessed with a wonderful pipe organ too, which was built in 1864, about 7 years after the hall was completed. It actually took that long to build the organ because in those days pipe organs were all mechanical. They were called tracker action organs. This organ was one of the largest built in its time. The organ has 3,504 pipes, and it has 52 stops, it has 4 keyboards and a pedal board, and at the time it was the largest organ in the country. But we were very lucky at the time to have our organ built by the E&G Hook Company of Boston. They were Boston's leading organ builder, and they were really looking forward to building the new organ for the Boston Music Hall. But they didn't get the job. They gave the job to Volker, which was a German organ company, and they got the job of building the Boston Music Hall's pipe organ. So the Hooks were really upset about that, but they got about the same time they were asked to build the Worcester organ here in Worcester, and they were so excited they were out to build the best organ they could possibly build because they wanted to show off how good an organ they could build, and that's very evident here. So they built Mechanics Hall's organ for a mere $9,000, which sounds like nothing. You can't even buy a single stop on an organ for that price these days. So anyway, the organ was a perfect success. It still operates the same way as it did back then today. It's still tracker action. It was restored in 1982 by Fritz Nowak. He was very meticulous in his work. He wanted to make sure that everything was done the way the Hooks would have done it. The only major change was the addition of an electric blower to provide the wind pressure, simply because you couldn't get people these days to pump the organ for any length of time without having them completely get winded, so to speak. It just doesn't happen these days, so we had to put the electric blower in. Well, Worcester is so lucky to have Mechanics Hall, a hall that could have easily been torn down because it had outlived its purpose. In 1933, the Memorial Auditorium was the new modern thing in town, and Mechanics Hall could have easily been sold and torn down for another modern building. But it's through the wisdom of the people that were around in the 1970s, including Julie Chase Fuller, who spearheaded the restoration effort, and our newspaper, the Worcester Telegram and Gazette. They started a fundraising drive that made it possible to use Mechanics Hall again and bring it up to modern standards. And we took off from there, and there was no looking back now. The hall is modern enough to do just about anything now, and we're very thankful that their wisdom and foresight saved our hall.
All right, folks, that's all for now. Thanks a lot for watching, and a big thank you to everyone who's donated or otherwise supported the New England Symphony Orchestra. It really makes a huge difference, and we really appreciate it. I'll see you music scholars next time when we get one step closer to our next concert. Click on subscribe and visit us on social media. Thank you.